warriors. The powers they hold are legendary.
But anyway, speaking of hot topic, Donald Trump obviously lost the electoral vote collection. Maybe, I don't know.
Technically not yet, but
go into the technicality here, bro.
Well, under the Constitution, and it's a numerical day, but I think this year it's December 14th. There's a certain number of days after the election. I think it's 45 days. Anyway, this year it's December 14th. Is when the Electoral College meets to certify, to I guess cast their votes, and then the Congress certifies it at that point. Like I think back in the old days they probably did a roll call, but now it might be especially this year it might be electronic. But
yeah,
but that's when officially the vote for president is finalized. So but to do that, each state has to certify its vote, and then each state, with a couple of exceptions, has a law that basically says the winner of the majority of the state popular vote receives all the electoral college votes for that state. And then those electors will then cast their vote on December 14th to officially, after the roll call, officially have a winner. So the press can say, the president-elect or the presumptive winner, presumptive winner or anything like that. Those may be true, but it's not official until December 14th.
Gotcha. So these lawsuits he's bringing up, what are they in conjunction with? Is it like whether or not the ballots were illegal, or
it depends on what state. So there's several. There's the key battleground states that you would expect. It's Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. I think those six. And the lawsuits that I've seen, I haven't read the complaints. I've just read summaries, but they range from things like the polling places were open different lengths of time in some places than others, so it was inconsistent between polling jurisdictions. That gave some people, and of course they allege that the ones that were open longer allowed more Democrats to go vote, squeeze in more votes. So I live in Harris County. Why would Harris County close at 8 and Montgomery County, which is adjacent, be open till 10? Unless there's a stronghold of Democrats in that state, in that jurisdiction, then that's why they want to make sure they have plenty of time to go vote. So that, and then there's for example, in Arizona, I think it was Arizona, they used the Sharpie markers to color in their hand ballots, and then the scanners didn't read the Sharpies. And apparently the people that were handing Sharpies were handing them to registered Republicans, so their votes wouldn't get counted. These are the allegations. I don't know if they're all true.
Yeah.
It's just an example.
Yeah.
Then, the mail-in ballot process I've seen challenged, and the provisional ballot process I've seen challenged. So there's in a lot of these states, there's multiple lawsuits. So what you hear from the press, though, is all the cases are getting dismissed. Trump's losing. Why his approach is failing, but I think that's part. So there's been individual citizens, there's been Republican Party, there's been President Trump, and some cases have been dismissed, and some cases have already gone up to the state Supreme Court. So I think today, on one of the cases, the Wisconsin Supreme Court voted 5-2 against Trump. But that's part of the process, because his next step is the United States Supreme Court, which is probably where they want it to end up. If you go back to Bush, Gore in 2000, Bush lost pretty much everything along the way. He had one victory that was remanded by the Florida Supreme Court. Then he lost at the district court again, went back up to the Florida Supreme Court, and I think they upheld their prior ruling, which is what judges like to do, because they don't want to overturn themselves. They don't want to get overturned either. But then it went to the United States Supreme Court, and on December 12th, 2 days I think before they had to certify, they said whatever. I can't remember going back to the whole hanging Chad thing, but whatever. I think they didn't want to recount or they did want to recount, or whatever it is, that the Supreme Court denied it for Gore's position, and then he conceded. So basically, if I'm losing by a few thousand votes and I can't get a recount, the whole hanging Chad to go redo all these ballots, then I've lost. And he conceded on national television. Gore, and what was it, Tipper?
Yeah.
His wife? Yeah.
Yeah, typical.
So they went on the air. I remember that because I was at I was in one of the common areas at Georgetown University at the time for one of those. Anyway, but the point is, it had to go all over to the Supreme Court, and that was only one state. Now this time it's 6 states. I don't know if North Carolina is being hotly contested because I think ultimately they
pulled for Trump.
Like they're going Trump, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada. I feel like I might be leaving one out, but I mean those 6 for sure. Florida was originally on the radar, but then Florida pretty much it seems that it's pretty solid for Trump, and so is North Carolina. So they've kind of left those alone. Those are 8 battleground states, and so 6 of them are at issue. But they're going to need a couple of them to go to the Supreme Court and go his way for it to make any difference. And there's some I guess nightmare scenarios, I guess, if you will, things that could go really, some kind of offshoots of the process.
No, do tell.
So I don't know if I should call it nightmare, but unless we're talking about riots and so forth following it, because if Trump ends up prevailing, part of it would be the nightmare scenario.
Oh my God.
But so what could happen is, let me back up.
Yeah.
In Article 2 of the Constitution is the executive branch, right? The first 3 is legislative, executive, judicial. Article 2, Section 1, and all the clauses aren't numbered, but it's in the first section and the second section. Talk about this whole process. They've had 2 amendments also since then, but the legislature gets to choose the electors. So I don't know if you've been paying attention to the hearings that have been going on. I haven't been in particular. I've seen clips of the testimony that's gone on, but the legislatures get to choose the electors. It says that in the Constitution. So what has happened in most of the states, and in a couple of states there's some minor variations, but essentially in all 50 states, you win the majority of the population, you win all the electors for that state. And that's because there's a law in place in Wisconsin for that purpose. So, but the legislature gets to make that decision, the state legislature. So Wisconsin, which has a both Republican House and a Republican Senate, could change it. And they could pass a resolution for their electors to choose different electors.
Oh, shit.
To vote for Trump or not to vote at all. Right?
Wow.
Potentially. Those are potential outcomes.
Right.
And I think Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, and Arizona all have Republican House and a Republican Senate. So they could pass a bill by a simple majority to change the electors. They could designate their own electors and say they're going to vote for Donald J. Trump or not vote at all, I guess.
Oh, my God.
Because they feel that the voting irregularities are so pervasive that we can't tell who the victor should be in this state, so we're not going to vote at all. The Electoral College votes. They're not going to vote at all.
Man, that could be a big problem.
So there's 2 prongs to that. One is if they say, okay, in any of those, and all 6 of those battleground states don't need to go for Trump for it to swing the other way. I think 2 or 3 do. But the big ones, if the Georgia and Pennsylvania went that way, and Michigan, it's Trump. Because it's not that far apart. It's like if you look on the CNN, it's like 305 to 232, right? There's 538 votes, so it's something like that. So 20 or 30 votes in 2 different, 20 in Pennsylvania and 16 in Georgia, flip the other way, then it's like almost a dead heat again. And then one other state, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, will swing it the other way.
Wow.
Those legislatures can make that decision. So what the legislatures could do is in those 3 of those states, pick 3, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, say, we are designating that our because of the voting irregularities and the fraud and the impropriety in the system and the process, we're going to designate that our electors are going to vote for President Trump. Boom, boom, boom. He wins. What they also could do is they say that there's so much irregularity, it's pervasive fraud, blah, blah, blah. We're going to withdraw our votes from the whole process altogether. Then what?
Man.
Now it goes back to the Constitution. When the electors meet, there isn't a majority for either candidate. If there's not a majority for either candidate, then the Congress votes. But they don't vote by party, like House, like the House votes and the Senate votes. It's state by state. Each state gets one vote. There are 27 Republican states. Or 26, and there's 20, I think it's 26 and 22 Democrat states with 2 independents. So, but still there's 26 Republican states.
Yeah.
That would be a majority. On a state-by-state vote, each state gets one vote. So if it went that way, straight party lines, and then that comes down to what does the Supreme Court say about some of these? If they start, if they have had one case that they dismissed, but I think, in my opinion, I think it had to do with a particular set of votes that they didn't want to include, and they declined to hear the case, which basically says whatever was ruled, we agree with whatever the lower courts have ruled on. So the Supreme Court really hasn't ruled on the core of a lot of these swing states, and what they say is going to be huge. And so we talked about last time Amy Coney Barrett.
Yep.
Well, arguably, because of the presidents who appointed them, hers was the 6th conservative justice on the court. However, Chief Justice Roberts, has been moving more left recently. Even though he was appointed by Bush 43, he's been on the court for 12 years. He's been moving more left. He's been more left-leaning. And probably most evidence recently by the Supreme Court challenge to Governor Cuomo's religious restrictions, basically closed synagogues and Catholic churches and so forth, or limited the number of people, like maybe it was 25. I don't remember for certain, but there was a limit to how many people could worship, which under the 10th Amendment, which is the powers reserved for the state, which are considered the police powers for the states to look out for the health, education, and welfare of their citizens. You would think, okay, based on the coronavirus pandemic, if you want to call it that, that was a reasonable restriction for the benefit of the greater good, right? That Governor Cuomo could say. But there was a lawsuit saying that it violated the First Amendment, which could trump the 10th Amendment in that case. So it went up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said that those orders violated the First Amendment. But the case was 5-4. And the 2 key votes were Robert went left with the 4 and Barrett sided with the right 5. With the right on the 5 judges that voted for in favor of banning the restrictions, included Barrett, and the 4 that voted to uphold the restrictions included Chief Justice Roberts, who I said has been leaning more left recently. So by all that, it could come down to several 5-4 decisions. So it could be, it's not over. And that's why in that on one of my posts the other day, I said, that guy was saying, oh, you've lost all this and lost all that. It's over. You should just concede. It's like, you know what? It's not over. And 2, we could be in for a surprise.
Yeah, man. I
think the vote on a state-by-state basis in Congress is the least likely, although it is an alternative, which would result in Trump having another 4 years. I think more likely than that, but maybe less likely than the Supreme Court controlling the outcome, would be the states passing bills saying these electors are going to vote for, our electors are going to vote for Trump, or our electors are not going to vote at all. And then the most likely is the Supreme Court rules on some of these fraud cases and says that we're going to throw out X number of votes, or we agree with the appellant, who's the person that's moving the Supreme Court, that this amount of votes or this certification or what is invalid or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think my personal opinion is the one way to just solve the whole problem, and I'm sure that the Democrats would probably file suits to try to stop it, would be, which would go all the way back up to the Supreme Court again,
Mm-hmm.
is in those states that are really close, vote again. In person with an ID. And I'm sorry if if you're going to start screaming, COVID, it didn't change. It didn't stop any of them having for big parties. There were huge parties.
Yeah.
When they thought Biden won, there's that million MAGA march. I don't think there was a million people, but there was hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
Didn't stop those people from gathering. If you can have a mosh pit of protesters, then you can stand 6 feet apart and vote again. In person, with an ID, no mail-in, no provisional. If you can make it, great. If you can't make it, great. I'm sure they're going to be like, well, the elderly and the hand. I was like, you know what? Provide busing. Provide
something.
Get them to the polls.
Something.
It's going to be a major undertaking. But I think in those 6 states, if you revote and Biden wins.
Yeah. Just got to do it.
Trump wins. And it may not be, it's not going to be all 6 for Biden, probably, but it's not going to be all 6 for Trump either.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my guess. And it could end up being that the thing is really close.
Man, things to think about, folks. And all this stuff is legal. These are things that could happen, folks. It could transpire that way. This is not something that's just off the seat of a pants here.
Right. No. Yeah.
This could happen.
Yeah, it could happen.
This is real.
That's why I did it in terms of most likely to least likely.
Mm-hmm.
But any one of those scenarios could turn out. And I think the fact that the state legislatures are Republican in both houses in a number of key swing states could be the reason that some of those less likely outcomes become the result.
Ain't that something? Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen.
On the other hand,
The Ninja